Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to explain the conical, teepee, all the different types that you can make. I'm using paper as a simulation, but it is drawn to scale. I am going to be using on most of my conicals and tarpies and teepees, I use a 20 by 30 foot tarp that I buy from Harbor Freight. They're inexpensive. They produce half of 30 feet is 15 feet, roughly a 15 foot, or give or take, maybe down to 14, depends on how these things, because when you pull them together, they sometimes shrink a little bit. So 13, 14, 15 foot diameter at the base of the circle is what's going to end up on these. These are drawn to scale. Now, the first one, now I've seen people do this for the first and second kind, but I'm going to go through 4 kinds of different cones that you can make on this. This one is the typical hemisphere. The length of 30 divided by 2 is 15 and 15. When you put your, what you call this thing here, compass, and draw your arc and cut it out. Now I've also drawn lines because on this hemisphere, I divide it into 8 segments when I make them so that I know where to put my tarp clips, tarp clips, tarp clips, tarp clips, tarp clips, etc. Now on this hemisphere one, I leave the edge of the tarp where the original, what do you call those things, grommets go, but you don't have to. But these grommets along the edges over here on your tarps, they get in the way, they thicken up your cover too much, and it's hard to get tarp clips on through those double thick things. Now these Harbor Freight tarps are very, very thin. So in reality, what I do is I flip them over and I'll, spray glue 2 of them together, or I'll glue some other kind of material to thicken them up, to toughen them up a little bit. Now they are camouflaged when they're in the tarp itself, so it does tend to make a gloomy looking lodge on the inside. They make great looking lodges on the outside, but on the inside they're gloomy. So I even go and spray glue white feed sacks on the inside, but you can spray glue anything, and I recommend spray glue instead of the dab-on glue or whatever, the goopy glue. I've done all these things over and over and over again. So spray on glue, spray something white. I mean, even if it's a sheet or whatever, to the inside of these Harbor Freight tarps. Now I'm going to pull this together. Simply when you lay this out on the ground to erect it, all you have to do is go get your, now I know they're 30 feet apart and it's hard to do, but on your tarp you can pull them together and the thing will just, well, the tarp itself won't come up hard, stiff like this paper does, but these points will come together. And when you erect them, you simply put a stake in, and I go back and forth and I pull on it, and it actually ends up, the tarp ends up forming a nice circle. I can adjust it later. And on these ones, I mean, people put a center pole in, but I like to put a bipod. A bipod, external bipod holds it up and leaves your floor open. Now, if you use something smaller than 15 foot, you get kind of a cramped living conditions, and they're not very comfortable. Yes, you can get out of the weather. Yes, you can get out of the rain, even down to 8 foot in diameter, but they're cramped and they're just not a good feeling deal. Now, this is the amount of scrap that's left over on this, and well, it's a lot. Use it for a floor, or I suppose you could cut around and make a liner. Now, these being plastic, and that's why I call them tarpies, these being plastic, they do collect dew on the inside. So when if you're using cloth, they'll collect dew too, but if you do a liner, a wall that comes up halfway up on the inside, a liner all the way around on the inside. It does a double wall to where your air comes up, and if you leave a little opening up at the top, sort of, it'll go out in your what do you call that? Your dew will be lessened. Now ends up being 8-sided for convenience and for pounding in steaks on the where I put the tart clips. I don't tape around the edges like what most people do on YouTube, where they're taping. They're using Gorilla Tape. Gorilla Tape is nice and everything, but I have found that Gorilla Tape and any kind of duct tape, it just ends up peeling off. Doesn't do what you want it to do. The heat loosens it, and so now I think I'll just leave that kind of like that, so you get the idea that that's a it's a symmetrical cone. It's the dimensions are all the same. Now let me see if I said that's 15. I use 15 centimeters to make a foot, but let's see what the centimeters say in terms of the diameter of this, and I'm going to approximate this. So it looks like it's 15 feet in diameter from front to back, from side to side. Yep, 15 by 15. So you get 15-foot diameter floor. The original people that inhabited North America before the horse arrived, the largest lodges that they probably made might have been 14 or 15 feet in diameter, and they're used to live in, but they're used basically to sleep in and get out of the weather. They're not the activities of cooking and living and hunting and fishing and doing everything. The activities, people live outside. Now, how do I know this? Because from experience. I mean, we're not that far away from people that lived long ago. I'm going to close this up just a little bit here. But when I leave on these hemispheres, when I leave the grommets on the front edge, they end up here down the front, and then I can add grommets if I want. And I'm not a grommet fan. That's why I use the tarp clips usually. But if there's a grommet and grommet and grommet and grommet and grommet, I can put tarp clips or a rope or whatever through there. So this extra tarp, I think there's enough to make a floor, maybe even a liner, maybe half of a floor so that to sleep on in the back or something. But for one person or for two people, 15 feet diameter is quite adequate. Quite adequate. So there's one. We'll put that over. Oh boy, look at that. We'll put that over here for now. Maybe I'll make a little background on it. Come on, background. We'll put that there like that. Hey, Maggie, how you doing? Okay, there's the hemisphere.